Holy City Center Radio is episode 152, and I am your host, Christian Sanger. Today is Friday, July 28th, 2023. Weekend is upon us. Be sure to head to holycitycenter.com. You can either look on the main page to see what weekend events are coming up. You can also go to holycitycenter.com/events so you can look at this weekend and every day next week and on and on and on into the future. It's Charleston's best events calendar, so you can find plans regardless of when you are looking. So be sure to go to those links I just mentioned and find some awesome plans around the Holy City. Speaking of awesome plans, not a whole lot been going on for me. Been pretty quiet this week. May have some things happening this weekend, which I will report back to you all on Monday if that's the case. But otherwise, pretty quiet. Not much to talk about today, so we're just going to dive right into the latest news. A bond hearing has been set for Jamie Lee Komorowski. It is August 1st. You may remember that back on the evening of April 28th, Komorowski collided with what's called a low-speed vehicle, or LSV, sort of similar to like a golf cart, and that happened on Folly Beach. That collision killed a new bride whose name was Samantha Miller. She had just married Eric Hutchinson that same evening. And unfortunately, this tragic accident occurred shortly after they took their vows. As far as Hutchinson, he was severely injured, but did survive. The same can be said for another occupant who was traveling with them. So thankfully, those two, did survive, although both were severely injured. Police ended up determining that Komorowski was driving 65 miles per hour in a 25 mile per hour zone. And ultimately, after she refused field sobriety tests, they had blood drawn at the hospital and found that her blood alcohol level was 3 times over the legal limit. Komorowski is charged with 3 counts of felony DUI, resulting in great bodily injury or death, and 1 count of reckless homicide. She was denied bond and has been held in custody at the Sheriff Al Cannon Detention Center since April 28th, but her attorneys, as I mentioned at the top, have filed a motion hoping to get her some bond. They have requested a bond of $100,000, and they've also added some conditions, which include Komorowski attending and successfully completing an inpatient rehabilitation program. And after that, she would have to remain under supervision at her mother's home, which is actually in New Jersey. And she would be required to make frequent telephone reporting, so basically just calling and checking in. And she would have no access to a vehicle or alcohol. Bond hearings on August 1st are scheduled to start at 9:30 a.m. No word on when hers specifically will take place. But certainly, I know a lot of people will be interested to see if she is granted bond. This story, although all DUI accidents are horrible and preventable, and of course, when someone is severely injured or dies, it's just a tragedy. But this particular case has really struck a nerve with some people, and I'm sure the main reason is because of who the victims were. They just were married. And the wife, the bride ends up dying in this accident. So, of course, it made headlines. And although there are similar, unfortunately, incidents that happen all the time, not just here, but, throughout the state and throughout the whole country. But yes, this one has certainly caught the attention of people. And again, I think the main reason is because of the situation. So there's going to be a lot of people who are going to have opinions about this, regardless of what happens. We'll be sure to keep you posted. Again, the bond is set for August, or bond hearing, I should say, is set for August 1st. I'll be sure to keep you all updated on what occurred. Some sad, if not expected news. Officials in Pennsylvania are calling off what they say was an exhaustive search effort in an attempt to find the body of a baby boy from Charleston. They've called it off without locating the boy's body. The missing 9-month-old, whose name was Conrad Shields, his mother and his 2-year-old sister were swept away in flash flooding in the state of Pennsylvania on July 15th. The mother was found on that day. The 2-year-old sister was found several days later, and there were members of their family that escaped the flash flooding. They were in a car. They were traveling in Pennsylvania. Like I said, they're from this area. And the father of these children, and I believe it was a grandparent and one other child, did escape. and they, were able to get out of the flooding unscathed, or at least relatively unscathed. But unfortunately, they did lose three members of their family. And it is sad to report that they were unable to find the 9-month-old. He, not just as it relates to his family, there were other, deaths in this flash flooding in Pennsylvania. And unfortunately, this 9-month-old, he's the only body that is yet to be found. Upper Makefield Police, which is in the area of Pennsylvania where the flooding occurred, said on this past Wednesday that they have exhausted all means of trying to locate Conrad. Certainly a very, very sad story. I think as time went on, it was pretty clear that he was not going to survive what occurred. And I think it was just hoping that, at least recover him so the family can give him a proper burial. But at this time, who knows if it will ever happen. And they've certainly, although they may be saying they're giving up the search as far as like an official search, I'm sure people are still going to be looking. And hopefully at some point he will turn up for this family. But just such a sad and devastating story. And you just have to hope that the family somehow can get through all that. Another update for you. It's been over a month since Jen Drummond was found in the middle of a James Island road, and her family still doesn't know exactly what ended up putting her in the hospital. But this past Wednesday, the family and their attorney held a press conference to provide some additional details and a timeline that they put together, trying to determine what exactly happened to Drummond on the morning of June 21st. During the press conference, the family and their attorney they ended up calling on the sheriff's office to provide more information to them and the public. Specifically, they are asking officials to call in SLED or Highway Patrol to help them investigate how Drummond ended up unconscious in the middle of Woodland Shores Road. So, although Jen's family doesn't know exactly what happened, they are saying that the video that was provided, we've talked about this story a few times on this podcast. You've probably seen it in local news outlets around town. There were some images released from what looks like a Ring doorbell or some kind of security camera at houses on that road. There was a few vehicles that police said they were interested if anyone knew who those vehicles belonged to, who may have been driving them. And so far, they haven't really provided anything else information wise to the community. However, Jen's family is trying to get more information out there, and they have said that they believe, based on their own, research of looking into this case, that they think they know of those three vehicles, which one, if she was struck by a vehicle, which one likely did it. They believe that with that video, the primary suspect, it was driving an SUV type vehicle that had a sunroof and fog lights. They say this car was on Woodland Shores Road at the same estimated time as Drummond. They said they believe that she left her house at 5:17 a.m. and then using some device of hers that shows her step counts, it shows that around 5:18 her step counter just stopped working. And at 5:19, just a minute later, is when a Good Samaritan found Drummond's body laying in the road and called 911. So, based on the step counts, when the 911 call was made, and the video they've seen, the family is saying they believe the SUV out of those three vehicles was likely the one that hit her. So again, that's what they guess. That's not officially coming from the police. As I mentioned, officials have not really provided too much information. So in response to this press conference, the Charleston County Sheriff's Office did release a statement that said in part that these types of investigations take time, and a lot of the work tends to happen mostly behind the scenes to protect the process. They said the sheriff's office is still diligently working and chasing down all leads, just like they do for any victim of crime in Charleston County. And they said they would seek SLED's assistance if they felt it was needed. So definitely this family is trying to use the media. This is not the first time they've held press conference to try to push for information, which as well they should, but also using the media to try to put pressure on police to release more info, and I'm sure to make sure that this remains on top of the mind for police, and I'm sure it is. But if you're a family member and it's been over a month since something happened, you might be getting a little anxious, and they definitely want some information. Hopefully, they will be able to get some and determine what happened to Jen Drummond. Now, as far as Drummond, if you don't remember, she has survived the accident. She was brought to a hospital. She was unconscious for a little while. She has woken up and has shown some movement in this press conference. They did say she is making progress, but it's slow going, which is to be expected. And they said, for instance, they may ask her what month she was born in, and she'll just say a random month. She's trying to answer, she's trying to help, but just something's not quite connecting there fully. But they're still hoping that more and more progress will be made each day, not just in her recovery, but also in the investigation. If you have any information, be sure to contact the Charleston County Sheriff's Office or Crime Stoppers if you think you may know who was in that SUV that potentially could have hit Jen on that morning. A lawyer for a store owner in South Carolina who is facing a murder charge after police said he chased and shot a black 14-year-old who he had falsely accused of stealing water has asked a judge to stop a search warrant for his business records. You may remember a young man by the name of Cyrus Carmack Belton was fatally shot in the back on May 28th. It was a killing that shocked a lot of people, caused grief and anger throughout the African American community in Richland County, where nearly half the population is black. The reason for that is they felt this was completely unnecessary and he may have been targeted because of his race. Now, a gun was found near Carmack Belton's body, but investigators have said there is no evidence that the teen ever directed the firearm at Rick Chow or his son, who together had pursued Carmack Belton on a chase that stretched about 500 feet past the family's Express Mart Shell station in Columbia. A prosecutor on Monday said investigators need to search computers and other electronics from Chow and his family to find the store's employee manual and other documents that could potentially review a pattern of behavior in how Chow normally dealt with shoplifters and how Carmack Belton may have been treated differently. But Chow's lawyer said his family already turned over what authorities wanted without a warrant and argued that investigators are now looking for items that they can't legally have. So, according to news outlets, the defense attorney is saying that investigators have no business looking at stuff like checks, bank accounts, and different types of information that are used for the operation of the business. So basically arguing you don't need these things as part of your investigation. Chow, who is Asian, thought the teen stole 4 bottles of water, but police and surveillance video showed that Carmack Belton picked up the bottles and put them down. Chow and his son chased the teen after he left the store, and Chow told investigators he fired a shot after his son told him that Carmack Belton had a gun. After the teen fell as he ran, that's when the accusation of him having a gun was made. However, Carmack Belton was shot once in the back, prompting authorities to end up deciding that a murder charge was necessary. Richland County Sheriff Leon Lott said, "You don't shoot somebody in the back that is not a threat to you." So we've talked about this story before, so this is just the latest update. You know how these things go, pre-trial motions and requests for information. And so they're trying to suppress, what the defense is saying is there's no need for you to have these records about finances and things like that, whereas prosecutors are saying no, we're looking for information about if there's an employee manual about what to do for shoplifters, and then to see if they deviated from that plan, and also what have they done when other situations have happened? Did they chase those people out of the store? Did they have a gun with them? Was this racially motivated, and because the teen was black, that the owner and his son chased him, and not just chased him, but ran out with a gun. So we'll see what happens. It's a sad story regardless, especially, I mean, even if he did steal water, like, settle down. You don't need to be chasing someone with a gun over that. I get it. It's your business and you don't want people to steal from you, but come on. It seems excessive even just to run after someone. Not illegal, of course, but excessive. And the teenager dies. Even if he did have a gun, when you're shot in the back, you obviously aren't pointing. Well, I shouldn't say obviously. I suppose it is possible to point a gun while running away. Um, but it appears authorities have determined that wasn't the case. That he didn't pull it out and wasn't like firing behind him. He didn't fire any shots or anything. So regardless, a sad story, easily could have been prevented if, number one, they just didn't chase this kid out of the store and ultimately would have found out he didn't steal anything. Easily could have, had surveillance, which they did, and maybe could have found him through that if he did indeed steal something. Just so unnecessary and so sad. And I'll be sure to keep you posted on updates as this case continues to work its way to a trial, perhaps, and then what happens if it does in fact go to trial. All right, but I want to send you out into the weekend with some good news. Uh, the Charleston RiverDogs are coming off back-to-back championships, and this season did not start out well for that title defense. It did not look like a three-peat was going to be in the cards. RiverDogs struggled for most of the first half of the season, but they have come out blazing here in the second half of the season after the All-Star break. Now, when you're hearing this podcast on Friday, they did have a game scheduled for Thursday night. I don't have the result of that as it is not happening as I'm recording this. I'm recording this on Thursday afternoon, so I don't know. There may be a slight change in the basically the records and stats and things I'm about to say. But regardless, even if they lose on Thursday night, they are just killing it so far here in the second half. So on Wednesday, the last game that we have, the Charleston RiverDogs erased a 3-run deficit midway through the ball game en route to a 7-4 win over the Augusta Green Jackets. That game was played here in downtown Charleston at Joseph P. Riley Jr. Park. The victory was the team's 6th in a row and 12th win in the last 13 games. Both stats, if you paid attention to the first half of the season, you would not think was possible. They were just struggling to win games, period, let alone multiple in a row. So this streak of 12 wins in 13 games is super impressive. They also, because of this blazing start, they own a 5-game lead over the rest of the competition here in the second half of the South Division. So for those who don't follow minor league baseball, different leagues have some different rules. For the RiverDogs, how it works, just like any other sport, you have your win and loss record. But the first half of the season, whoever wins the first half of the season, there's different divisions. Whoever wins their division has made the playoffs. Does not matter what they do in the second half of the season. They could lose every single game and they'll still make it to the postseason because they won the first half. Conversely, a team that just is terrible in the first half could win their division in the second half and they would make the playoffs. So there's a little bit more to it. There's some, tiebreakers and scenarios and things like that, but that's what we're looking at right now. The RiverDogs did not have a good first half of the season, but basically, although they will show a cumulative record, if you go look at the standings, you can see what they've done in both halves of the season, and then you can see each half broken up. But if they can win their division, and they're on a roll right now and already have a 5-game lead, which is, pretty significant. There's plenty of time to go, but it's a significant lead in their division. They could clinch the second half title and then find themselves in the postseason again. So I'm excited. RiverDogs games are fun no matter how the team is doing. It's always great to be out at the Joe's, fun promotions, usually lots of good food options. I know people love Thirsty Thursdays, of course, where you can get your dollar beers. And even on non-Thirsty Thursdays, they always have a plethora of drink options, including like boozy milkshakes and things like that. So always a good time, but it's just a little bit more fun when the team is winning. So yeah, it's fun to see the Dogs on a win streak, doing well, hopefully barreling towards another postseason berth. And then what would have been unthinkable after that first half of the season, perhaps we could have a third straight title. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Step by step, we got to go. But yeah, it's exciting to see the RiverDogs doing well. And I should mention the Charleston Battery, the soccer club here in Charleston, although they play their games in Mount Pleasant, are also having an incredible season. They have been at the top of their division as well, so things are going well for them. And I'll be sure to keep you posted on both teams as they continue on their seasons, and hopefully we might have some pretty special endings this year. We'll see what happens. So that's it. Go enjoy your weekend. Thank you so much for listening. Remember, go to holycitycenter.com/events to see what's going on in town. And if before you get out there and enjoy what will, I'm sure, be a hot weekend, if you could, just take a little second to do a couple things that help me out. If you're listening to this podcast on just about any streaming platform, there should be some options to subscribe to the podcast, like it, rate it, review it. Whatever you can do, please do. That helps get more people listening to the podcast. You can also go to holycitycenter.com/shop to pick up merchandise, or go to patreon.com/holycitycenter to sign up for one of those support tiers. Before I go enjoy my weekend, I also have to thank Cole Collins with LMC Sound System, who produced this episode of Holy City Center Radio. And of course, a big thank you to Tyler Boone, whose music you hear in each and every episode as well. Although I'm certainly not wishing away the weekend, it can take as long as it needs. I am still looking forward to Monday, where I will be speaking to you all again. Again, no rush, but I am looking forward to it. I enjoy talking to you all and having this podcast to, update everybody on what's going on in town, and looking forward to doing it again on Monday. But until then, be sure to enjoy your weekend. Stay safe out there. Have fun, and good night, and good luck.